and about the bill, that is. Members, especially on the other side. And I must say that the observations are quite understandably reasonable, Mr. Speaker. And as we all know, well intended. But Mr. Speaker, permit me to clarify that these are all things that are mostly, if not totally, already permissible under the current Airport Authority Act 2025 revision. And so the reason why we have this bill is because the government considered it prudent and considered that in the interest of transparency, among other things, it is best to have an amendment to the primary legislation instead of using the provisions of Section 41 to make regulations, which most people would not have been aware of, Mr. Speaker. But as I said, most of the things that have been discussed are either already permissible under the current Act, or, Mr. Speaker, they are contemplated by the bill that is being discussed before the House. And I can give you a number of examples, Mr. Speaker. Section 41 of the Act, the current Act. Section 41 of the current Act, Mr. Speaker, allows for the making of regulations for a number of things. And if you look at 41.1, it says the authority may, in respect of any airport, with the approval of the governor, make regulations for regulating the use and operation of the airport and the conduct of all persons while within the airport, and in particular, such regulations may, A, Mr. Speaker, provide for securing the safety of aircraft, vehicles, and persons using any such airport and preventing danger to the public arising from the use and operation of the airport. Mr. Speaker, that's very wide powers to take measures to deal with the safety of vehicles and persons using the airport. Very wide plenary powers, if I might say so. Mr. Speaker, it also, in F, says the regulations may regulate, promote, or restrict the movement of persons into, in, or out of the airport, and in this connection may designate any area a restricted area. Permit me to also mention H, which is to regulate vehicular traffic anywhere within the airport, and in particular may impose speed limits on vehicles therein. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in this regard, M, where it says that the regulations may provide for security arrangements in accordance with ICAO requirements and the security requirements of this or any other law of the islands. Those, Mr. Speaker, are very wide powers to use regulations to underpin or streamline the use of the airport, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the current Act also already provides for the designation of authorized persons. And it gives them, Mr. Speaker, powers of arrest. And I refer to Section 37 in particular, Mr. Speaker. Section 37 says, arrest without warrant. That's the heading, arrest without warrant. Notwithstanding any other provision of this law, a constable or an authorized person may, within any airport or any area under the control of the authority, arrest without warrant any person who is contravening or is suspected of contravening or having contravened this law or regulation made or deemed to have been made thereunder. So, Mr. Speaker, the current law provides for persons other than police officers to arrest persons without warrant. So the bill is not breaking any new ground in that respect, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, the bill in clause 5, Mr. Speaker, 5D, if I might, with your leave, just look at that. Clause 5, Mr. Speaker, at page 11 of the bill. That's an amendment to amendment of section 41, which deals with regulations. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is relevant in the sense that the honorable member from Georgetown Central quite rightly observed that these people should have proper training if they're going to be exercising these powers. And nobody could take any issue with that, Mr. Speaker. So the bill does contemplate that they will have training. The Principal Act is amended in section 41(1) by inserting after paragraph M the following paragraph, and go straight to MD, Mr. MD. Provide for operational framework for stopping vehicles and carrying out visual inspection, including procedures, limitations, and visual inspections and safeguards. And then, Mr. Speaker, provide for the authorization, identification, and training of approved officers. So the bill does contemplate, Mr. Speaker, as does the honorable member, that persons who are going to be wielding these kind of powers should have the requisite training. And the government does contemplate, had that in mind, Mr. Speaker, when the bill was crafted.
Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Leader Opposition, and
thank you, Mr.
for
Speaker.
Georgetown Central, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of elucidation, if the member would allow.
Okay. Member for Georgetown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member just alluded to references I made in my speech about training, and I did clarify that I recognize that training was allowed. Just by way of understanding, did you understand what I said to be one of the lack of identification of what kind of training? I just want to make sure that if that's what your understanding was of what I said, rather than me bringing up a point of order of clarification.
I think a point of elucidation should be asking you to explain something, not giving your own explanation of what you said earlier. But you have to, okay.
Oh, well, I'm at pains to, I'm willing to understand what the honourable member is saying. If my response is incorrect or inadequate, then clearly I'm here to assist. So if I misunderstood what you're saying or what you've said, I'm happy for the clarification. I'm subject to you, of course, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry.
Trying to make is that on the point of elucidation, it's normally because you're asking the member speaking to elucidate something, not to clarify what you said earlier for that member. That's what I'm making.
If you give way, Mr. Speaker, I agree with you 100%. Hence the reason my line of asking him to give clarity if he understood, because if he didn't understand that to be the case, then I would have to do a point of order of clarification, which should be afterwards, which would be a point of order. So it's up to him to say whether what he understood or not, and if he didn't understand it, then I can give clarity to what exactly I said before the House.
Mr. Speaker, I thought I understand the spirit of what he's saying. is that given the enormity of the powers that are being vested in these people, who are not law enforcement officers, it is imperative that they be given adequate training, proper training, which I agree with. And I'm saying that the bill does contemplate that they will be trained. I mean, it's quite a salient, quite a sensible observation, Mr. Speaker, that they be trained, and so on. And the bill contemplates that they will be trained, and so if they're going to exercise powers of arrest, especially powers of arrest without warrant, or any of those kind of powers. It makes sense. So it is quite a reasonable observation, honourable member. As some said. Mr. Speaker, so the bill having provided for that, Mr. Speaker, allow me to say, even if rather tangentially here, that if at the point of arrest, yes, just allow me to say, if even tangentially, against the backdrop of what is contained in this bill, if, Mr. Speaker, any of us in here, or in fact an ordinary citizen, is in the airport, which is in the restricted zone, and we observe in place like a serious offense being committed, the law, the common law, give us the powers of arrest. It's a serious offense. It's such a thing as citizen's arrest, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just saying that because not many of us would have the benefit of any training, but would have been smart enough to realize that some serious transgression is taking place there. And the law, in its wisdom, says that as a citizen, you have the powers of arrest. So, I just want to make that point, Mr. Speaker, for what is worth. Yeah. But having said that, I do not, Mr. Speaker, in any way seek to minimize the honourable member's concerns. As I said, they are reasonable. But they are already either permissible under the Act or they are contemplated in the bill itself. Mr. Speaker, I mentioned earlier that the reason for the bill, again, is that the government considered it prudent and think that in the best interest, in the interest of transparency, the best way to go about this is to make an amendment to the Primary Act. But I read Section 41 before, which gives plenary powers to the Cabinet to make regulations to address these issues that we are addressing here in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member from Georgetown Central again observed quite sensibly that there's a need to ensure that the power to stop and inspect is not intrusive. We want to make sure that there's no intrusive nature. It's not of an intrusive nature. And, Mr. Speaker, the government agrees. And the bill says so. It says so in Clause 4, Mr. Speaker. It says, if I might, with the leave, Mr. Speaker, makes the point that, yes, Clause 4, where it seeks to amend Section 32. It says, Mr. Speaker, with the leave, the Principal Act is amended by inserting after Section 32 the following sections. And the caption is visual inspection of vehicles and associated powers. And it says, an approved officer, 32A1, an approved officer, while on duty at the airport may, and it sets out stop a vehicle in a designated security zone, carry out a visual inspection of the stopped vehicle in a designated airport security zone, and carry out a visual inspection of the vehicle. And the visual inspection of the vehicle in accordance with subsection 1 shall not include a physical search of a person in the vehicle. B, an intrusive search of the vehicle or person in the vehicle. So again, Mr. Speaker, quite reasonably, the honourable member suggests that care should be taken that the search or inspection is not of an intrusive nature. The government agrees, Mr. Speaker, the bill so reflects. Mr. Speaker, also on the issue of clarifying what would constitute reasonable grounds, Mr. Speaker, for search, an observation was made, Mr. Speaker, that there is a need for clarity around it. It should be more explicit, if I might say so. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that the concept of what constitutes a reasonable ground cannot be prescriptive. What constitutes a reasonable ground is going to be informed by the facts of each case, determined by the facts of each case, because the state of mind of the person is informed by location, movement, intelligence, among other things. And so whether there's reasonable grounds for a search, or stop, inspect, arrest, whatever it is usually, Mr. Speaker, determined by the facts of each case. A specific particular fact situation cannot be overly prescriptive, Mr. Speaker. And so, whilst the observation, again, is reasonable, the legal position is that it cannot be too prescriptive. And so the language there, again, Mr. Speaker, is adequate, in my view, to address the situation. Mr. Speaker, there was some observation about the expertise of the CEO and the Chief Security Officer in the exercise of their powers in the event of an increase in the threat level as contemplated by the new Section 32D of the bill. But, Mr. Speaker, the clear contemplation here is that the CEO, I just read what, for context, Mr. Speaker, I just read what the Section 32D says so that members can follow. It says, Mr. Speaker, powers exercisable on increased threat level. It says, where there is a change in the prevailing threat level, the Chief Executive Officer or the Chief Security Officer of the authority may, at any time, implement the safety or security measures considered necessary or appropriate to address the prevailing threat. Mr. Speaker, what was contemplated here is, and understandably so, is that if this happens, the CEO and the Chief Security Officer will, as necessary, liaise with the Commissioner of Police and the relevant security team and come up with a suitable response, Mr. Speaker, to deal with this elevated threat level. And so again, the observation is reasonable. The bill contemplates that, but it is clearly within the contemplation that the CEO and the Chief Security Officer will not be seeking to act solo, but will make the necessary connection and discuss with the Commissioner of Police what would be a suitable response given the level of threat as they perceive them to be, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think all in all, there are other things said, Mr. Speaker, but the Honourable Minister will, of course, in his wrap-up, deal with those issues. But I just thought it would be helpful to seek, Mr. Speaker, to clarify some of the legal issues that were flagged by honourable members in their contribution. All reasonable observations, I might say. But, Mr. Speaker, having said that, I said, all in all, I think the bill is a very responsive piece of legislation, and responsive piece of legislation by the government to an ever-increasing erratic and unpredictable world, Mr. Speaker, where we see copycats every day, Mr. Speaker. And we cannot, should not, and ought not to wait until something happens. We need to be proactive, but we also need to be responsive, Mr. Speaker. And as the honourable member from Boddentown West observed, Mr. Speaker, the human rights, he observed the human rights that we so cherish, Mr. Speaker, they are not absolute. He's quite right about that. We have, Mr. Speaker, to agree, we have to agree to sacrifice some of our civil liberties in the interest of public safety, Mr. Speaker, and security. And in that regard, I think the bill strikes the right balance, Mr. Speaker. It looks forward, but is also responsive. The bill itself is proportionate, Mr. Speaker, and it carries with it, contained therewith, the adequate safeguards as it relates to our civil liberties, Mr. Speaker. So I too would like to commend safe passage of the bill. I thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? If not, does the mover wish to exercise his right of reply?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Attorney General for that full clarity of the bill that he just laid out. And I think with what he just laid out, there's no need for me to go over it again. So, Speaker, I also want to thank all the members in the House that contributed to this bill and for their support and for their understanding too that we do know that not every bill will be right, and if there are bills that are going to need tweaks and changes as we go along, and we learn from them as we continue to move. Mr. Speaker, but I, Mr. Speaker, have faith in the individuals that we have down at our airport authority. I see the work they do on a daily basis down there. I know a lot of the members that was there before know the hard work that they do. So, Mr. Speaker, in good faith, there's no way in the world I could ever think that they would actually put powers into the hands of some people that they were not 100% sure of when it comes to searching of vehicles. The vetting process of that, Mr. Speaker, is something that we take very serious. It is our borders for our gateway to this country. We don't just put in and anybody out to the front line out there to do this kind of thing. Mr. Speaker, this I think the arrest side and the powers of to be able to arrest without a warrant was the one that triggered the most, I guess, the biggest spark to everybody. And Mr. Speaker, I want people to understand that if you are faced with somebody coming to see you up to the front, you don't have time to go get a warrant to come back to search the person's vehicle. This is why we need to make sure that the people that are going to be there have the powers to be able to look in and to see what's going on. And if they feel that they need the help, that's where CBC, that's where the police is always there to help and back them up where they would need that help. But, and Mr. Speaker, one of the things is that if it does get to that point, as the Honorable Attorney General just reminded me of, the same people with the powers are required to hand over the individuals to the police. So it's like any one of us trying to protect our home. We need to make sure that the people that is there have the powers, have the strength to do their job. You can't give a man a job to do and tell him that he don't have no powers to do it, because nobody would take him serious. But Mr. Speaker, this is a part of a problem that we can fix. Once we get to the distance that we can allow the drop point at the front of the gate front door, which I think is just over 30 meters back from the front of the door of the airport, this search and stuff wouldn't have to happen. That little to happen anymore. We just need to be able to step back. So in part of the enhancement of the airport, I know that the chairman, the deputy chairman, and the board and the members there are looking at this to be able to how to resolve this problem. But right now we have a problem facing us that we need to fix. And this is what Dave Cayman said, this is our fix for it right now until we can get to that next step. So we need to continue to work to get to the next step where we can get the 30 meters distance, just over 30 meters from the doorway. Mr. Speaker, I know the Attorney General also mentioned that section, I think it's 32 or section 37 of the law of the Airport Act, also already talks about that powers. 37 of the law actually talks about the powers already. So it is already there in the law. We're just help strengthening it where we see need to strengthen. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to just thank everybody, all of my colleagues, and for the straight clarity, the concerns that everybody may have had about the changes to the law. But again, I think everybody started off with saying that it is the right approach and is the direction that we need to go. So in that, sir, I want to thank everybody for supporting this Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2026.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026 be given a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2026 has been given a second reading.
Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026.
Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to move the second reading of the Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026.
The bill has been duly moved. Does the mover wish to speak thereto?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present on behalf of the government the Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026, which amends the Health Practice Act 2026 revision. Mr. Speaker, before turning to the clauses of the bill, it is important to place these amendments in context. For years, the Public Accounts Committee, through required undertakings, 3 of both 2018 and 2021, called for decisive action, directing the ministry responsible for health to provide a clear plan to develop and roll out a national healthcare standards program. Today, that long-standing mandate is finally being honored. The adoption of this bill signals a decisive commitment to elevating national healthcare standards, closing a critical and persistent gap, and delivering on an obligation that has been delayed for too long. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the current Health Practice Act and its regulations provide an important standards framework. Under Section 35 of the Act, each council is required to prepare and publish a code of standards of professional practice for the members of the professions regulated by that council. Those codes are intended to lay down standards of professional conduct and practice, provide guidance in relation to the delivery of healthcare services, and set out the conditions of practice and supervision for registered practitioners. The Act further integrates those standards into the regulatory and disciplinary regime by permitting action where a practitioner fails to comply with the standards of professional conduct and practice. Other types of regulations already permitted by the Act regard matters such as registers for practitioners, functions of the councils, cabinet directions to the councils, registration, fees, suspensions, courses and qualifications, contraventions, or offenses. However, Mr. Speaker, a safe and effective healthcare system requires more than individual professionalism, goodwill, or minimal legal requirements. It requires clear, enforceable standards grounded in law and updated to reflect the latest international best practice. It requires, for example, a clear and consistent framework across all health professions for patient consent and capacity to consent, one that protects both patients and practitioners. It requires the same level of expectations regarding the patient's access to their own information, regardless of practitioner's profession. And these are just a few examples. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to introduce a bill that will provide for the development of this framework, and I will now turn to a brief overview of its key clauses. Clause 1 provides for the short title of the legislation. Clause 2 provides for the amendment of Section 35 of the Health Practice Act 2026 revision to empower the Cabinet to prescribe standards of professional practice that apply to every registered practitioner, thus establishing a clear structure for how standards are set. Clause 2 also provides that the standards of professional practice shall be in respect of the following matters: A, professional responsibilities and clinical practice; B, licensing, performance, and scope of practice; C, clinical practice; D, consent and capacity to consent; E, prescribing and handling medicine; F, clinical trials and research. G, patient-related standards. H, safety. I, trust, honesty, and integrity. And J, any other matter related to standards of professional practice that apply to registered practitioners as the Cabinet considers necessary. The policy intent here is straightforward. Certain foundational standards should apply consistently across the health sector. Patients and the wider public should be able to expect that all registered practitioners are guided by common baseline principles of professionalism, safety, ethics, competence, and patient care. The Act further integrates those standards into the regulatory and disciplinary regime by permitting action where a practitioner fails to comply with the standards of professional conduct and practice. The new Section 35(1)(b), together with the other existing provisions of Section 35, expressly preserves the duty of every council to prepare and publish a code of standards of professional practice for the members of the profession regulated by that council. Therefore, the professional councils will continue to regulate their respective professions based on enhanced regulatory structure to be set by the Health Practice Act and regulations. Regulate the professional conduct and discipline of registered practitioners. Regulate the training requirements of registered practitioners in the islands. Promote high standards of professional conduct and performance of registered practitioners, and carry out such other duties and powers as are set out elsewhere in the Act. In other words, the bill adds a common layer of general standards across the system and strengthens the Council's role by providing a clearer framework under which councils can develop standards and oversee practitioners more effectively. Next, Mr. Speaker, I would like to offer a practical example of how Cabinet-issued regulations and Council-issued standards will operate together. Regulations may, for instance, set a general expectation that registered practitioners maintain up-to-date knowledge and skills in order to deliver a safe and appropriate standard of practice, including, where relevant, training in identified priority areas determined by the councils. It is then through the profession-specific codes and standards issued by each council that these requirements are given practical effect. Those codes will define the relevant priority areas and outline the courses or competencies required, whether by specialty, scope of practice, or where appropriate, on the basis of individual assessment. This approach ensures that consistent, overarching expectations are established at the regulatory level, while professional judgment and expertise continue to be guided by the councils. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to clarify the consultation aspect. The bill before this House includes only those provisions that are being amended and does not restate existing consultation mechanisms which remain fully in place under the Health Practice Act. Section 42 of the Act already provides a clear framework under which Cabinet, when drafting regulations, may consult the Health Practice Commission and the relevant councils where it considers this necessary. That framework applies regardless of the subject and strikes an appropriate balance. It supports consultation as a general rule while preserving Cabinet's ability to act swiftly in urgent circumstances where a lengthy consultation process may not be feasible. In practice, Mr. Speaker, consultation is integral to how regulations are developed. The Ministry routinely engages a broad range of experts and stakeholders, including our Chief Medical Officer, our Chief Nursing Officer, the National Epidemiologist, the Department of Health and Regulatory Services, and other departments, in line with good policy-making principles. The Health Practice Commission and the councils were consulted on the first version of the standards, and it remains my clear intention, even if we are not legally required, to consult both key stakeholders and the public once a draft prepared by legislative drafting is available. I also wish to be very clear that this framework does not diminish professional leadership. On the contrary, it ensures that professional expertise continues to guide the development and evolution of standards. While this bill provides a mechanism for Cabinet to prescribe overarching standards through regulations, those standards are informed by the substantive work already undertaken by the professional councils. The initial draft regulations will be based on council-endorsed standards, and it is my expectation that the same collaborative approach will apply to any future amendments. Mr. Speaker, the bill does not prescribe a rigid review or consultation mechanism in the primary legislation, and this is deliberate. It ensures that the framework remains flexible and responsive over time. Consultation with councils, Health Practice Commission, and other relevant entities will continue to form an integral part of how standards are developed and updated, consistent with established government practice. Cabinet prescribed standards are intended to operate as overarching baseline requirements that apply across all regulated health professions, while council codes of practice will continue to play a vital role in setting profession-specific standards that reflect the scope, risk, and realities of each field. The provision allowing Cabinet standards to prevail in the event of inconsistency is not intended to undermine the role of the councils, but to ensure clarity and consistency in matters affecting patient safety, accountability, and systematic risk. This approach is already embedded in the existing legislative architecture. This Honourable House has approved overarching standards through the Health Practice Act, and Cabinet has given effect to those standards through regulations. The nursing regulations being a particularly good example. Therefore, this bill simply builds on and strengthens that established framework by improving coherence and consistency across the health system. Mr. Speaker, while this bill enhances the legal framework allowing for regulations to be made, it does not, however, introduce per se new professional standards. The actual development of regulations for professional standards will involve, as I mentioned, extensive consultation before being adopted. Stakeholders expected to be involved would include healthcare practitioners, professional councils, healthcare facilities, relevant entities and departments, and patients and the wider public. The goal is to ensure that standards are practical, appropriate for the Cayman Islands, and developed with the input from the people who work in and use the health system. Additionally, consultation will represent a valuable opportunity to better educate the public about what they should expect from their healthcare system and the professionals helping patients to better navigate care, provided informed consent, and recognize when something falls short of acceptable practice. Granting Cabinet the power to establish overarching professional standards is intended to address fragmentation, inconsistency, and regulatory gaps that have emerged under the current framework. By setting a high-level, cross-cutting standards at the Cabinet level, government can ensure coherence, consistency, and alignment with national health priorities, public safety objectives, and broader public policy settings. These overarching standards will provide a clear foundation upon which the councils can build profession-specific requirements, allowing them to retain technical expertise and operational independence while working within a unified and modern regulatory framework. In this way, the reform strengthens governance, improves transparency, and ensures that professional regulation remains responsive, proportionate, and fit for purpose. Mr. Speaker, some may ask why Cabinet should concern itself with the quality of care delivered within our health system. My answer is a simple one. That is precisely what Cabinet should be doing. Cabinet bears collective responsibility for the well-being of our population, for public confidence in essential services, and for ensuring that national systems operate safely, consistently, and in the public interest. Quality of care is not an abstract or technical matter. It goes to patient safety, public trust, and the effective use of public resources. While clinical expertise rightly resides with professionals and regulatory councils, it is Cabinet's role to set the overarching direction, ensure coherence across the system, and respond when gaps or inconsistencies arise, far from constituting overreach. This reform reflects responsible stewardship of the healthcare system and a clear acknowledgement that safeguarding quality of care is a core function of government. Mr. Speaker, as parliamentarians and members of Cabinet, I don't think there are many of us here who are scientists or engineers. I know we have a social worker, clinicians. I know, Mr. Speaker, you've had your experience in that space. But yet, through legislation and regulations, we are required to establish the frameworks by which these highly specialized professions are governed. By empowering Cabinet to establish overarching professional standards developed through structured consultation with qualified experts and stakeholders, we ensure that regulation is grounded in sound policy and national priorities, while allowing the councils, as the discipline-specific authorities, to expand on those standards with the necessary technical depth. This approach strikes the appropriate balance between democratic accountability and professional expertise, and strengthens the credibility, consistency, and effectiveness of the regulatory system as a whole. During the 28-day consultation period, Mr. Speaker, members of the public, health practitioners, and representatives of the health facilities provided valuable feedback, much of which consisted of constructive suggestions on the standards to be developed. I wish to express my sincere thanks to all those who took the time to participate in the consultation process and to contribute their views. Their engagement, insight, and willingness to assist are greatly appreciated and reflect a shared commitment to strengthening the regulatory framework and supporting high standards of professional practice in the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to place on record my sincere gratitude to the chairpersons and members of the councils, to the Health Practice Commission, to the Registrar, and to the Department of Health Regulatory Services and staff who provide ongoing support to the health practice bodies for their continued hard work and commitment in carrying out these important responsibilities. Their service is essential to the effective functioning of the regulatory framework for health practitioners in the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, these amendments are measured but important. They will help strengthen the regulatory framework for health practitioners in the Cayman Islands, promote consistency across the healthcare sector, and reinforce the protection of patients and the public working in partnership with the health practice bodies, the councils, and the Health Practice Commission. This is ultimately a public protection measure. Licensed healthcare professionals are entrusted with people's lives, health, and their well-being. It is therefore appropriate that the law should provide for clear, modern, and consistent overarching standards, while still relying on the councils to add specifics to those standards, regulate their professions, uphold discipline, oversee training requirements, and promote high standards of conduct and performance. I therefore commend the Health Practice Amendment Bill to this Honourable House and respectfully seek the support of the members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Member for Red Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, podium, please. Thank you, sir.
There you go.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister for her contribution. I want to say at the outset that the official opposition supports strengthening professional standards. We support improving consistency across the health system, and we support putting patient safety and public trust at the heart of healthcare. But, Mr. Speaker, when we first looked at this amending bill, it gave us pause, because just looking at it and reading what it said, it seemed not just to us, but to others in the public, that it was removing the ability for the medical fraternity to have a say in what the practice, in what the codes of practice for healthcare standards would be. That's how it seemed, and putting that solely in the hands of the cabinet. And when we started asking around, there was concern also in the medical fraternity, a variety of individuals in the medical fraternity. So it wasn't just a concern that we had. It was a concern out there in the general public. And I know I heard the minister speak about consultation, and we did get from one of those organizations what they submitted in terms of consultation, but it doesn't seem as if what they received back assuaged their concerns. So I believe I believe that on speaking with the minister, that she had not as yet had the opportunity, and if I'm correct, if I'm incorrect, she can say so, to maybe more widely have the kind of one-on-one consultation with some of the medical fraternity. But I did reach out to the minister, asking if we could have a chat about it. She was unable to get back to me. I had an opportunity to very briefly speak with her on Monday gone. Very brief conversation. We agreed that I would send her a note regarding the concerns. I had not heard back. I reached out again, and I had not heard back. I'm not saying this, sir, to go after the minister at all. Far from it. She is very busy. I appreciate that. So this morning, or this afternoon when I came in, I said to her, can we spend some time and have a huddle? And she agreed, and we spoke to some of her staff. She indicated to me then what she just explained to this House in terms of where this came from. It wasn't obvious to us where it came from. It came from an OAG, Auditor General's report, and she went on to further explain how it is anticipated that the role of the councils, if I heard her correctly, would be actually strengthened, and we strengthen in the regulations. She also explained to the House, as she mentioned to me, that there are other acts, laws, that require the consultation. That was not obvious to me then. I mentioned that, sir, to say that I came here prepared for a different debate that I'm about to have. But as the minister indicated, we felt strongly about making sure that we understood where this was going, because standards, as all of us know here, medical standards is not an abstract notion. They guide how patients are treated, they guide the decisions that are made, they protect people. So, Mr. Speaker, the approach that I think that we have decided that we're going to take is we will give the government the opportunity to bring the regulations. I did say to the Premier, I think I may have said it to the Minister, that if it was me, I would withdraw this for now, go make sure we have full, proper consultation and discussion with the medical fraternity, because from what I can gather, there is a lot of concern, but that's not going to happen. I accept that. Mr. Speaker, I had put forward some amendments. I will say what they are. No, I don't plan to debate them. I'm just going to say what they are. I don't think there's anything wrong with me saying what they are. Are you disagreeing with that, Mr. Speaker? Or do you disagree? I can actually say what the amendments were. The Speaker is happy with it.
But there's an accepted standard. If you intend to move an amendment to a bill in committee stage, you should give notice to adjourn your debate, or it should not be allowed to be moved in committee stage.
Yeah,
so of course you can move.
Right. So I will say what these were, but I will give notice, sir, that I do intend to withdraw these. But these were seeking to try to maintain the ability for councils to still have a say with regards to the standards. The Minister has given assurances that that will actually happen in the regulations, so I won't go forward with these. In my conversations with her, I was hoping she would have said this. As a matter of fact, I said this to her in her debate. She did indicate that she thought these were more suitable to be included possibly within the regulations that will be coming. We will see. But I accept her at her word. So, Mr. Speaker, given the concerns that we had, I will not be voting against the bill, but I would like to be abstaining from it because I want to see what regulations come later on, because the concerns are out there, and we did have the concerns. I will move away from that, Mr. Speaker, and I will speak to two issues. Once I can find them, these are all the pages that I won't be speaking to. But we became aware as we started to have conversations with the public and with constituents that there are certain situations out there that maybe should be addressed. I will begin my presentation, written presentation there, sir. Mr. Speaker, there's also a practical dimension to this issue of standards. In a modern healthcare system, Caymanians and residents often use overseas international centers of excellence. Sometimes recommended overseas treatments are not adopted locally because they are not reflected in the current standards or accepted protocols. The problem is not necessarily the validity of the treatment. It is that our current framework does not provide a clear way to assess it and act on it. That's my understanding. And it is therefore important that our health practice framework is sufficiently flexible and responsive to evolving best practice and does not inadvertently create barriers to high-quality health care simply because levels or types of care have not yet been incorporated locally. I'm hoping that the Minister, in what she has said in terms of where they're moving, that it will incorporate those kinds of protections. So in that regard, Mr. Speaker, I would ask that the Honourable Minister consider whether the health practice framework that is being put together would provide for a clear and timely pathway through which individual internationally recognized specialist guidance or treatment plans can be reviewed and, where appropriate, approved for implementation within the local healthcare system where it is clinically appropriate and feasible, or where that is not the case, such treatment can be considered for timely referral to appropriate overseas specialists, caregiver, or care providers. The development of such an approach should, of course, be informed by the Chief Medical Officer and the relevant professional councils. This will ensure that our system can respond in a timely, lawful, and clinically appropriate way to evolving best practice and ultimately achieve better health outcomes for our people. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to discuss, as would the Leader of the Opposition, a specific situation that this seeks to address, to better help understand what it is that I'm speaking of. Mr. Speaker, there's also, and I did discuss this with the Minister, a wider point of regulatory coherence, and I will take the opportunity to mention it here because I've had constituents recently raise this with me. While the government seeks to strengthen and centralize standards for registered health practitioners, there remains other sectors such as cosmetology, tattooing, and body art that involve direct physical procedures, including skin penetration. Mr. Speaker, these activities carry recognized risks of infection, allergic reaction, and other complications, yet they are regulated primarily at the facility and hygiene levels rather than through a comparable practitioner-based regulatory framework with appropriate oversight and accountability. I raise this not to conflate this with the issues we were discussing earlier, but as I said, sir, I did speak to the Minister about this, and she did mention that this sector is also being considered. So I would ask that maybe she speak to this on the closing and give some assurances as to when attention might be paid to that sector as well, sir. Mr. Speaker, it is here that I was going to be speaking more about the amendments I'll be bringing, but I will end here. The opposition will not oppose this bill. I'm assuaged by the assurances that we've received that the councils will actually be strengthened and the role will not be diminished in the regulations that are coming forward. I have asked the Minister already, and I will do so again, to please have conversations with the medical fraternity so that they can be further assuaged. It is important that what we do here maintains the confidence of not just those of us in here, but also the public, and in this case, the medical fraternity as well. Thank you very much, sir. I will stop there.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Member for Bordentown West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my voice to the debate on the Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026 that seeks to amend Section 35 of the Health Practice Act to give Cabinet the power to set universal professional standards that apply to all registered health practitioners in the Cayman Islands and not just those governed by individual professional councils. Mr. Speaker, this bill, if passed, will allow the Cabinet to set standards that cover professional responsibilities and clinical practice, licensing and scope of practice, consent and capacity to consent, prescribing and handling medicine, clinical trials and research, patient-related standards, and safety. Mr. Speaker, the most significant structural change is the hierarchy it establishes. Please note that individual professional councils can still prepare and publish their own codes of practice for their members, but if there is ever a conflict between the council's code and the Cabinet prescribed regulations, the Cabinet regulations take priority. In short, Mr. Speaker, it centralizes minimum professional standards at the Cabinet level, creating a uniform baseline across all health professions while letting individual councils maintain their own, more specific code, so long as those codes don't contradict the overarching regulations made by Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, I initially had some concerns with this bill. On my first reading, I was curious as to the driving force behind this bill. What was the problem we were trying to fix, and the level of consultation with the professionals in the medical industry. Mr. Speaker, also on my first read, I saw this bill as a transfer of power and responsibility away from the expert professional bodies that have earned their authority through years of specialized knowledge and experience towards politicians, toward a body whose expertise, however considerable in matters of governance, is not and cannot be the clinical and professional expertise that our growing healthcare industry demands. My other concern, Mr. Speaker, related to the possible impact that this bill would have on the malpractice insurance of professionals in the healthcare industry. However, Mr. Speaker, I must say kudos to the Honorable Premier and the Honorable Minister for Health. They took it upon themselves to call me to discuss the bill and also the concerns that I had with the bill. I can safely say, Mr. Speaker, that after my call to the Premier and the Minister for Health, most of my concerns were relaxed when the Minister indicated that she would be filing a committee stage amendment, which she did. The remaining concerns were not material enough for me to not support this bill. And as such, Mr. Speaker, after consulting with my colleague from Bontown East, where he and I have discussed the bill, it is our intention to support the bill and thank the Minister for bringing the bill. And again, Mr. Speaker, I just want to extend my appreciation to both the Honorable Premier and the Minister of Health to taking a proactive approach and a collaborative approach to basically allay our concerns and to move this bill forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to exercise her right of reply?
Mr. Speaker, could I just ask for one moment before we start, please? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to conclude the second reading debate on the Health Practice Amendment Bill and to thank the honourable members on all sides of this House for their considered and constructive contributions. This bill represents a measured but important strengthening of the regulatory framework for health practitioners in the Cayman Islands. It supports consistency across the system, reinforces public protection, and provides greater clarity for practitioners, regulators, and patients alike. The role of the professional councils is not diminished by these amendments, it is strengthened. Councils remain responsible for regulating their professions, developing profession-specific standards, and overseeing training and discipline now within a clearer and more coherent legislative framework. Consultation will take place as we move forward into the regulations. The practitioners and health facilities were also given the opportunity, along with the public, on this 28-day consultation period. And many did. Their input has helped shape the approach before this House, and that engagement will continue as the framework is developed and implemented. Also want to say that, as I shared with some of even my colleagues earlier, as we discussed some of the concerns that had been shared across the floor on the consultation process, I reminded colleagues that all we are doing right now is providing Cabinet with the ability to draft regulations. And subsequent to that, we would, or we should, as legislators, go back and consult with the public. We will. I did say that. You weren't here, but I said that. Before I conclude, I wish to briefly respond to the points raised by the Honourable Member for Red Bay. This bill does not remove or diminish the role of the medical fraternity or professional councils. On the contrary, it establishes a consistent, system-wide baseline of standards while preserving the council's central responsibility to develop, expand, and apply profession-specific requirements based on their expertise. Consultation has already informed the approach before this House, including input from practitioners and health facilities, and that engagement will continue in a more detailed and focused way at the regulation stage, where the actual professional standards will then be defined. That is where the depth of technical discussions rightly belongs. Mr. Speaker, this is enabling legislation. It addresses a long-standing gap in our regulatory framework. Delaying it would only postpone the structured development of standards that all members agree are necessary for patient safety and public trust. And as I mentioned in the earlier part of my debate, it has been outstanding for quite some time. Passing this bill allows that important work to proceed in an orderly, consultative, and transparent manner. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I commend the Health Practice Amendment Bill to this Honourable House and respectfully seek the members' support. And Mr. Speaker, before I sit, not related to the health, actually I will raise that with the member since that doesn't relate to the bill.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026 be given a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The ayes have it. The Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026 has been given a second reading.
Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026.
Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the second reading of a bill entitled the Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026.
The bill has been duly moved. Does the member wish to speak to it? My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present the Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026 on behalf of the government. Mr. Speaker, democracy is a system. And like any system, It performs only to the standard that the design allows. For too long, we've asked members of this honorable House to serve the public at the highest level without providing some of the most basic level of institutional support. Today, we continue on the road to adjust that. This bill is more than just about being allowances and managers. It's about building the kind of parliament the people of the Cayman Islands deserve. One that is suitably resourced, accountable, and genuinely able to serve constituents in each electoral district. I suppose, Mr. Speaker, what makes this bill significant is that it formalizes for the very first time in Cayman Islands parliamentary history designated, specified staff for the office of the leader of the opposition. And I deliberately phrase it as such, Mr. Speaker, because we are here to take names and faces out of it. Look at the post and determine whether or not that post, which is in the Constitution, deserves more suitable resources to carry out the office. So this is a milestone, Mr. Speaker. The NCFC government recognizing that it takes a strong, properly resourced opposition to have greater good governance in the country. And this is not unusual. Our view was maximized by the visit last year from other members from the Commonwealth who came in, I think, October and discussed the level of resources that are in their parliaments for the opposition. So this is not radical. In addition, Mr. Speaker, as part of International Women's Month, this Parliament opened a Commonwealth Parliament Association branch for women. And we also held Youth Parliament. If we are going to convince more women to contest the polls and form part of politics, if we're going to ask more young people who have extraordinary degrees and can go off and do other things in the world, then we need to be able to show them that if they choose to turn to this profession, there'll be adequate resources. So, Mr. Speaker, in other words, this bill is not in any way groundbreaking. It's making suitable adjustments in 2026 for this House of Parliament. The bill is relatively short. It's arranged, Mr. Speaker, into 8 clauses. Clause 1 provides the short title of the legislation and contains a commencement provision, including that the amendments to Schedule 1 and to paragraph 1.2 of Part 2 of Schedule 2 are deemed to have come into force on the 1st of January this year. Clause 2 makes general amendments to the Principal Act to standardize terminology, replacing references to lowercase member of the Parliament and uppercase members of the Parliament with uppercase member of Parliament and uppercase members of Parliament throughout. Clause 3 amends Section 2 of the Principal Act to redefine constituent assistant as a person appointed by the chief officer responsible for providing services to an elected member of Parliament and to insert a new definition of constituency office manager as a person appointed by the chief officer responsible for managing the constituency office of an elected member of Parliament. That therefore affords members to have a more senior person who may have additional qualifications of a managerial role and then also have the ability to hire a subordinate. Clause 4 amends Section 4 of the Principal Act to expand the general functions of the Commission to include providing constituency office managers to elected members of Parliament and providing an office and staff to support the office of the Leader of the Opposition. Clause 5 repeals and substitutes Section 12A of the Principal Act to provide that Part 1 of Schedule 2 applies to constituency office managers and constituency assistants, and that Part 3 of Schedule 2 applies to staff appointed to support the office of the Leader of the Opposition. Clause 6 amends Section 13 of the Principal Act to update the structure of the Commission, expressly providing for the appointment of constituency office managers, constituency assistants, and the staff of the Leader of the Opposition, and setting out the relevant allowances. Clause 7, Mr. Speaker, amends Schedule 1 of the Principal Act to increase the allowances for both the Deputy Speaker and the Deputy Leader of the Opposition from 2.5% to 10% of their monthly respective salaries. Clause 8 repeals and substitutes Schedule 2 of the Principal Act in its entirety. The new Schedule 2 contains 3 parts. Part 1 governs the appointment, remuneration, and termination of constituency office managers and constituency assistants. Part 2 sets out the constituency allowance at $6,500 per month, up from $5,000, a modest increase to take account of cost of living and other pressures, for each elected member of Parliament, and provides for executive allowances, which were already there for the office of the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition, and the allowance for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman representatives and severance entitlements, which were there. Part 3 establishes the terms and conditions for staff appointed to support the office of the Leader of the Opposition, comprising of an operations and communications manager and a senior policy advisor. Because we recognize that as part of discerning legislation, reviewing policy, creating proposals, you can't be expected to do that by yourself. When the government has loaded with resources, it is appropriate for similar resources to be given to the Leader of the Opposition now and whoever occupies that office in the future. With that, Mr. Speaker, I want to sincerely thank the members of the NCFC government for seeing the wisdom in taking, again, names and faces out of it, thinking about advancing democracy, the Leader of the Opposition and all opposition members for leaning in and working with the government to create the bill. We did it together, and particularly the council that helped do this bill. If we continue to advance Parliament, ideally there would be a legal drafter assigned to the Parliament itself, and then the council would then not have to come to Cabinet for drafting instructions. It would just be done here. But we're getting there, chipping away and advancing our democracy. So I thank all members for all of their mature, sensible views to take the Parliament from strength to strength. And with that, Mr. Speaker, in that short contribution and presentation of the bill, and also thanking always legal drafting, no matter where they're situated, the moment they're situated in the government admin building. But I also thank them for seeing the urgency and helping us prepare, and also Madam Clerk for her always wise interventions. With that, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to this Honorable House for its second reading.
Any other member wish to speak? Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give a very brief contribution to the Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026.
Mr. Speaker, after being chief cook and bottle washer for the last year, I found some new talents. One of those is poem writing. If you allow me, I'll read my latest poem, sir. In the hush of twilight's grace, I lingered soft in silent hope of an office space. With dream-like whispers light and free, I built my hopes on what having staff support could be. Alas, at a chamber luncheon, the stars above began to gleam, as time wove through my tender dream, and with the dawn, the promise came. No longer waiting, I felt the flame. At last, the moment, bright and clear, the time is now, the time is here. With open arms, I greet the sun, for in the waiting, life as a leader of the opposition has begun. Poet, and I didn't know it. Mr. Speaker, let me join in thanking the Council, Parliamentary Council, the government, yourself, sir, and the staff for the hard work and the many hours put in to bringing this to a reality for us. Mr. Speaker, as being one of the first cohorts of the Parliament when we changed over from the Legislative Assembly to the Parliament and began this journey of being independent from the government, having more autonomy, I am very satisfied today to see the progress that we are making in our democratic journey as a parliament. And I think this is a step in the right direction, Mr. Speaker, and it would be remiss of me not to say that you have always been, when you were a member of parliament, an advocate for advancing our democratic process and advocate for advancing the way that we do business here in the Parliament and the role of the opposition. So I thank you for your support. I thank you for all that you have done in the past. And I know you have great plans for the future. So with those few words, Mr. Speaker, I say thank you, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Does any other member for Red Bay?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice to this as well. Having worked in what was a past office of the Leader of the Opposition, primarily when my colleague, the member for Georgetown East, was the Leader of the Opposition. I want to commend you, sir, because we're moving forward and we're advancing. We're actually having it within law, which is a good thing. But the concept for this started with you, and I believe during Sir Alden's time. And I want to add my voice to commending you, because that first office of the Leader of the Opposition that was set up, you were then the Leader of the Opposition. We had subsequent Leader of the Oppositions. It is regrettable that that fell away when the autonomy of the Parliament happened. That was probably for a good thing, because what we now have is something better. And I join voice with thanking the Premier and the government and the Council for bringing this to fruition and putting back in place the office of the Leader of the Opposition. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak? Member for Bordentown West.
Mr. Speaker, well, I really wasn't planning on speaking on this bill, but on behalf of my colleague from Bordentown East, we also want to extend our thanks to the Honourable Premier and his government for making this step. And Mr. Speaker, as the member for Red Bay has highlighted, we know this is something that started with you pushing not just for the name change of the Legislative Assembly to Parliament, but also to raise the standard of representation that we offer our people. And I know it is something that's near and dear and passionate to you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm glad that God has blessed you long life, longevity, and for you to also sit in this chair to actually see it and to be a witness from that standpoint. Mr. Speaker, you know, my relationship with you goes way back. And my respect for you has been marrow deep. I mean, granted that you saved my life too. That does help. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, it is one of the things that I am happy that you have seen what you have fought for so long. I'm glad that you have lived in a time where history will vindicate you, history will be kind to you, and no place better can we look than the Health Service Authority. Like, why build a new hospital for 16 million when you can renovate the old one for 70 million and can grow? So I think in that sense, history has vindicated you in many respects. But, Mr. Speaker, I also have to give credit to the Honourable Premier for a tone that he has set in this Parliament, in this session. It takes a lot for government to come down here without a quorum and can expect some level of cooperation. And you have to give credit because I think he has created an atmosphere that is that comfortable. And I think it says something about how much we have progressed or matured as a democracy. So credit has to be given to him in that regard, because I do see where he has gone out of his way above and beyond to take a more collaborative approach. Because you and I both know when I entered into this body, we look over there, if there ain't 10 on that side, you stay outside. You know what I mean? So that was the rule. Yeah, so it does go to show it has changed, and I think the Premier has to be given his credit for the tone that he has brought. You can't take anything from him in that regard, you know? Huh? Yeah. Well, yeah, listen, but you see, it still shows a level of leadership because the government still carries the majority. I'm not going to take anything, and I think overall, this session of Parliament, going into my third term, has been one, I would probably say, one of probably the most productive and the most constructive, where we have been more dealing with the issues rather than the politics. And I think that all goes well from that standpoint. But I just want to say to the Premier and his team again, thank you for this. What we do is quite challenging. My friend, I'm a good friend from Bodden East, we have the two largest constituencies, and I can tell you, it is a challenge sometimes. You know what I mean? And, you know, we have people in my constituents, and I'm sure my friend in Bodden East have the same, where people were used to saying that, well, they could have found this one, they could have found that one. Back then, people had home phones, you didn't have mobile phones, so you couldn't have a situation where if you want your politician, you have to wait till either they were at the office or they're home to get a call, return a call. Now it's a constant where as you send out a message and people see online, they expect you to respond same time. You know, so it is a challenge in itself, and the resources can never be enough. But for us to move and represent our people well, this needs to be done. And I'm really moved to hear that we're coming with a legal draft for Parliament, because honestly, Mr. Speaker, as parliamentarians, and especially on the opposition bench, we need to be carrying more bills. Motions are fine, but bills are needed to really get the people works done. So I am very happy to hear that. And again, Premier, I just want to thank you and your government, and for the leader of the opposition, official opposition, for the tone that they have set for this term. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? If not, does the mover wish to exercise his right of reply?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, to thank the leader of the opposition for his eloquent poem. We don't know if it was Google Gemini or ChatGPT or if he really did have those ponderings, but either way, it was good. And it really was a pleasure. Mr. Speaker, I'll save some special comments for you. It isn't easy chairing the Management Council. I don't envy you. It isn't easy because everyone in this room is a leader in their own right.
It's not easy managing leaders. You do it well in the council. So thank you, sir. You've seen this as a long time coming. So you've seen this from bookend to bookend. So thank you, sir. And I appreciate the member for Bodden Town West and his comments about the tone of Parliament. But really, it's a partnership throughout the entire Parliament, and it also comes down to the relationship with you, Mr. Speaker. This is also part of your vision. It isn't just Andre Ebanks. It's also the Speaker saying, let's be more collaborative, let's get things done for the people, and try to keep politics out of it. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I thank all the members for their support all the way around the House. And I hope that we can continue to have even more modifications, because this isn't the end. We have to continue to evolve to be a mature, advancing Parliament in this Caribbean, these three beloved islands of ours. 3 for member for BRAC East, 3 islands, not 1, 3 islands all working together. You are a given. You are a given. And you remind me weekly in caucus, but I don't see the member for the BRAC East as often. So, thank you, colleagues. I think this is a good thing for our Parliament.
Thank you. The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026 be given a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Parliamentary Management Amendment Bill 2026 has been given a second reading.
Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026.
Honourable Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of a bill entitled Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026.
The bill has been duly moved. Does the mover wish to speak thereto?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with your leave, may I just read a long title into the record? Mr. Speaker, is a bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act 2025 revision in order to expand the membership of the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group, to include the Minister with responsibility for financial services or a designate of the Minister to be the chairperson of the steering group, and to include the chief officer of the ministry responsible for customs and border control or the designate of the chief officer, to provide for the sharing of information between members of a committee appointed by the steering group and between members of the steering group and members of the committee, to provide for an annual performance report of the activities of the steering group and for incidental and connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, I now seek to move this bill on behalf of the government, Mr. Speaker, and by way of background, the Cayman Islands financial services sector and other economic drivers, Mr. Speaker, are, as we are aware, highly exposed to global anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing, and counter-proliferation financing scrutiny, Mr. Speaker. I remember saying some time ago in this House, Mr. Speaker, that as a jurisdiction, we are suffering from review fatigue, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, robust national coordination is required to ensure sustained compliance with the Financial Action Task Force standards. Mr. Speaker, the FATF upcoming 5th round of mutual evaluations will assess the effectiveness and technical compliance of the Cayman Islands regime in 2027. And so this bill seeks to enhance the prospect of successful evaluation by, among other things, strengthening institutional arrangements, including providing for a more robust mechanism for the anti-money laundering steering group to monitor competent authorities' progress against national action plan or strategy for combating AML, CFT, and PF, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill amends the Proceeds of Crime Act to expand the membership by including the minister responsible for financial services, who will serve as chairperson, or, Mr. Speaker, designate of the AML steering group. Mr. Speaker, the group, the AML, is the body responsible for the general oversight of the government's anti-money laundering policy. And, Mr. Speaker, includes promoting effective collaboration among competent authorities in a manner that ensures the compatibility of the requirements for combating money laundering and terrorist financing with the law protecting personal data, privacy, and related matters, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill also adds the Chief Officer of the Ministry responsible for Customs and Border Control, or his designate, Mr. Speaker, his or her designate, Mr. Speaker, as a member of the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group. Mr. Speaker, it also adds the Legal Services Supervisory Authority, LISA, and the Cayman Islands Institute of Professional Accountants, CIPA, as members of the Interagency Coordination Committee, Mr. Speaker, ACC. The bill introduces provisions to enhance information sharing and, by extension, of domestic cooperation and coordination among members of the Interagency Coordination Committee. Mr. Speaker, it also provides for that sort of facility between members of the IACC and the AMLSG. Under the bill, sir, investigative and prosecutorial authorities will now be required to submit an annual report to the AMLSG, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to AML matters and as effectiveness indicators. Mr. Speaker, in fashioning the bill, consultations with internal stakeholders were held in January 2026 with all members of the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group and the IACC, including, Mr. Speaker, with the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, Customs and Border Control, the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Financial Reporting Authority, the Office of the DPP, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, the Department of Commerce and Investment, the General Registry, Mr. Speaker, the Legal Services Supervisory Authority mentioned earlier, the Cayman Islands Institute of Professional Accountants, as well as the Office for Strategic Action and Illicit Finance, Mr. Speaker, OSAFE. Mr. Speaker, the feedback from the authorities has been considered, Mr. Speaker, and the bill was revised accordingly. If I may, with the leave, sir, mention briefly the clauses of the bill, Mr. Speaker. Clause 1, as usual, provides for the short title. Clause 2, sir, amends Section 2 of the Act to insert definitions for Interagency Coordination Committee, self-laundering offense, standalone money laundering offense, as well as third-party money laundering offense, Mr. Speaker. Clause 3 amends Section 5 of the Act, Mr. Speaker, and repeal and replaces Section 5.1 of the Principal Act to change the composition of the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group. It is proposed, Mr. Speaker, that the group will now be chaired by the Minister responsible for financial services or a designate of that minister. Clause 3, Mr. Speaker, also amends Section 5.3a of the Principal Act to provide for the continuation of the committee known as the Interagency Coordination Committee. And, Mr. Speaker, to insert a new provision that allows representation on the Interagency Coordination Committee by agencies or bodies assigned as supervisory authority by Cabinet under Section 4.9 of the Principal Act. So, Mr. Speaker, these would include the self-regulatory body, SEPA, and LSSA, the Legal Services Supervisory Authority, as I mentioned earlier. Clause 4, Mr. Speaker, inserts a new Section 5A, which provides for the submission of annual performance reports by every competent authority charged with responsibility for investigating or prosecuting money laundering, as well as prosecuting associated predicate offenses and terrorist financing. Such reports, sir, must be prepared and submitted to the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group no later than 3 months after the end of each calendar year. The report, Mr. Speaker, will thereafter be submitted to Cabinet for information and then published in the Gazette and any other government website determined by the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group. Mr. Speaker, reporting entities must submit annual performance reports containing, at minimum, the following information. A, key achievements and indicators of progress. And these are, as measured, Mr. Speaker, against the National Action Plan approved by the AMLSG, if one exists, the action plan that is, and to combat money laundering, Mr. Speaker, terrorist financing and proliferation financing. And, Mr. Speaker, 2, in the absence of a national action plan, in line with the national strategy to combat money laundering, financing of terrorism, and proliferation financing. And, Mr. Speaker, must contain an outline of the operational and strategic priorities of the relevant competent authority for the forthcoming year, where such priorities relate to the National Anti-Money Laundering and CFT and PF financing strategy, proliferation financing strategy. Mr. Speaker, they need to be also contained therein statistical or performance indicators relevant to the effectiveness of the relevant agency in its performance against the National Anti-Money Laundering, Counter-Terrorist Financing, and Counter-Proliferation Action Plan approved by the MLSG. Mr. Speaker, matters to be included in an annual performance report submitted by an entity which prosecutes offenses, so that would be a report submitted by the DPP, Mr. Speaker. These should include the number of prosecutions for money laundering, terrorist financing and proliferation financing activity, the nature and types of associated predicate offenses from which proceeds are derived, the number of money laundering convictions related to 1, third-party money laundering offenses, 2, standalone money laundering offenses, as well as self-laundering offenses and foreign predicate offenses, Mr. Speaker. All these are details that are required to be included in the report. So also include, Mr. Speaker, the number and types of sanctions, including monetary fines and/or prison sentences imposed for money laundering offenses, as well as the other offenses. And, Mr. Speaker, it must include the type of offenses to which the sanctions itself relates. Mr. Speaker, matters to be included in any report that is submitted by the investigatory agency. And these should include the number of criminal investigations for money laundering and the other related offenses, the number of criminal cases where there was an investigation to identify and trace assets and the value of criminal assets seized or frozen for domestic purposes, if any. Mr. Speaker, I might add that these reports that are being required here, especially from the DPP, I propose to bring a committee stage amendment to make it quite clear that the reports itself are not expected to be too granular and should not contain any information which may identify a particular person or a particular case and such other details, Mr. Speaker. It must be aggregate and anonymized. Mr. Speaker, Class 5 inserts new sections 7A and B. The proposed new section 7A deals with information sharing among the Interagency Coordination Committee members and between the committee and the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group. And it provides, sir, that in short, that members of the IACC may, in good faith, share information with other IACC members or with the MLSG members where necessary to perform their statutory function, Mr. Speaker. The new Section 7B of the Act will provide that no member of the MLSG or the IACC, nor any member of that committee shall be liable in damages for anything done or omitted in the discharge of their respective functions or duties under the legislation, unless, of course, sir, it can be shown rather, that the act or omission was done in bad faith or constituted willful misconduct or negligence, Mr. Speaker. In other words, immunity, Mr. Speaker, unless there is bad faith, negligence, or misconduct. And so, Clause 6 validates any sharing of information which took place prior to the date of commencement of the bill, if it should becomes law, Mr. Speaker. So, sir, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, those are the main highlights of the bill. And in closing, I wish to thank the staff of the Office for Strategic Action and Illicit Finance in the Ministry of Financial Services and Commerce, in particular Mr. Dwayne Lawrence and Ms. Erica Bodden, as well as the Legislative Drafting Department, Mr. Speaker, for their efforts with respect to the design and the preparation of this bill. And with that, sir, I commend the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 to this House for second reading, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Member for Georgetown East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very, very briefly, I rise on behalf of the official opposition just to make this very short contribution to the debate on this bill. Mr. Speaker, I had actually prepared something a little bit lengthier to go through some of the provisions, actual provisions of the bill, but having sat here and listened to the Attorney General expound on it, I can see very little that I can add to it. So I will skip that and I will conclude my presentation. One thing I wanted to say, I was truly pleased with the extent of consultation that the bill seems to have gone through with so many different entities and groups that have had input into it. That really gives me a lot of good comfort tonight as well. So, Mr. Speaker, I will just end by saying that we support the bill and look forward to voting in the affirmative when the vote is taken. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak? Member for Bordentown West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill also on behalf of my good friend and colleague from Bordentown East. We have discussed this bill and we agree that it is important that matters such as these, that this Parliament should also always have a unified approach because of the nature of it, international competition we have and all the different regulatory bodies, they need to understand that we are serious about taking this kind of legislation that deals with AML and everything else very serious. And we need to also make sure that we carry a unified voice in this regard. So with that said, Mr. Speaker, we support the bill. One of the things I want to also thank the government for, and it was one of the things at first that caught my attention, was the changing of the chairmanship from the Attorney General to the Minister for Financial Services. But I think it is high time now that ultimately, as representative and as the voice of the people, that we play a more active role in that regard. I think it, again, augurs well to our maturity as representative of the people, and also maturity as a country, that we can now move these things and show it more serious when they see the Minister of Financial Services, who happens to be the premier in this regard, leading this charge. I think it sends the right message internationally, and I think that is what regulators and the different people like to see. So, Mr. Speaker, with that, I mean, we're happy with it. We have no issues with it, and we welcome the changes, and also just want to give the Minister of Financial Services and his team the credit. We know that this is a very difficult area, but it is a lifeline to our country, and whatever we can ever do to help in that regard, we'll do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Not a call on the. I like this pattern that is developing here, you know, with the debate. One member of the opposition, one member of the independent, one member of the government. Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We aim to please. Mr. Speaker, this bill is bittersweet. I'm going to save part of what I'm going to say for when an actual retirement occurs. But the Attorney General, in his presentation of this bill, adequately set out all the reasons on the surface. But let's also let the public have some insight. The Attorney General has been at the forefront of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing framework legislation for years upon years. He's seen it all. And because we know he has plans and has earned a retirement in the foreseeable future, and none of us know who the next Attorney General will be and whether they will have such a keen interest and monumental experience in this area, it is time, in addition to the reasons that the member for Bordentown West has said, for a shift that the policymaker with responsibility for financial services take, again, as I said on the last bill, names and faces out of it. The lion's share of legislation and policy that drives the anti-money laundering framework comes from that ministry. And I'm glad that the member for Bordentown West made this point, because when you're in these rooms, the AG can tell you, those international standard setters ultimately want to know, what does the elected policymaker think about all this? We know you can send the Attorney General. We know you can send the chief officers. We know you can send the technocrats. But all of you are creatures of instructions. And that requires high political commitment. So the people of the country have put people in post. What do the people in those posts in Parliament think of all this? So with that in mind, and the fact that earlier in the term, we have moved the office strategic action on illicit finance under the Ministry of Financial Services. You have the gelling of policy, operational, but in this unique circumstance, we also are cognizant of the fact that a stalwart in the area, I have to call him by his name, not just the Attorney General, but Samuel Bulgin will be moving on. We would hope the next AG, whomever he or she may be, will be lending their shoulder to this wheel, but we don't know. So I'll save all the emotional stuff for when he actually retires. Save that for another day. But I think I made my case for all the reasons for this shift in the legislation. So I thank the AG for moving this bill and having an orderly transition. I'm personally not asking for more work, but it is the right thing for the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I'll invite them. Oh, okay. Okay, it's just been brought to my attention that I need to invite the Premier to suspend the standing orders to get us to work beyond 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Clerk is quite right. It is now the hour of 8 o'clock, so I move that we suspend Standing Order 14-1 to allow the House to continue beyond the hour of 8 o'clock.
The question is that Standing Orders 14-1 be suspended to allow the House to work beyond the hour of 8 o'clock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The ayes have it. Standing Orders 14-1 is therefore suspended. I now invite the Honorable Attorney General to respond to the debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to thank the members for their contribution to the bill. There isn't really much more to say, but I do confirm, Mr. Speaker, that whenever we are in these forum, depending on how you pluralize it. As Attorney General, if I represent the Cayman Islands, one of the things that I have to say, like a broken record, and not just Cayman, but any country for that matter, where they're represented by non-elected representative. One of the things that we have to keep repeating like a broken record is that there is high political commitment behind these initiatives and so on. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to hear it. If you don't say it, it's as if something is missing from the record or something. So we usually put it at the beginning of our response to say there's political commitment at the highest level, and then everything else flows after that and so on. So it is quite fitting, quite in order, if you can have that body in the room instead of having to repeat it and all sort of thing. But having said that, so there are other reasons, as you heard, which we will hear more about at the appropriate juncture. But I mentioned earlier on today, and I think the member from Bontown West mentioned that we've always been responding to external concerns, if I might put it that way. So this is yet another example where whatever we do around AML and proliferation financing and terrorist financing, it has to be in response, has always been in response to the FATF standards, the FATF methodology, and they're evolving on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker. And so in preparation for the 5th round, which begins in earnest in May or June of next year, culminating in an on-site visit in December of 2027, Mr. Speaker, that we have the necessary personnel and framework in place as we make those kind of preparations so that we can have sufficient lead time for effectiveness to be assessed prior to the actual mutual evaluation itself. I'm very confident so that it will go well, whether or not I'm around. We have excellent players in all the relevant agencies, and there's commitment, there's professionalism, and there's sincerity and vision dealing with all of these initiatives and so on. So like any other storm, we will weather this as we continue and discuss, Mr. Speaker. So once again, I want to thank everybody for their support for this bill, and I commend it to this House. Thank you.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled "The Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 be given a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, no. The ayes have it. The Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 has been given a second reading. The House will be suspended until 8:30. This Parliament is back in session, and the Parliament will now go into committee. This House is now in committee, and with the leave of the House, may I assume that, as usual, we would authorize the Honourable Attorney General to correct minor errors and such the like in these bills. Is there consensus for that? Okay. Would the clerk please state the bill and read the clauses?
Airports Authority Amendment and Validation Bill 2026. Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, amendment of Section 5 of the Airport Authority Act 2005 revision, functions of the authority. Clause 3, amendment of Section 20, receipts of the authority. Clause 4, amendment of Section 41, regulations. Clause 5, validation of payments and collection of fees for air navigation services. Clause 6, validation of penalties imposed and collected for non-payment of fees for air navigation services. Clause 7, orders or determinations by a court.
Are there any questions on clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7? If there's no question, the question is that clauses, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 stand part of the bill.
A bill for an act to amend the Airport Authority Act 2005 revision to provide for the collection of fees by the authority from aircraft operators for the use of air navigation services, to validate the collection of fees by the authority and the payment of the fees by aircraft operators for air navigation services, to validate penalties charged or paid by the non-payment of fees for air navigation services, and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the bill do stand part of the bill. The title, sorry, do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill.
Auditors Oversight Amendment, Validation and Repeal Bill 2026. Clause 1, short title and commencement. Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of the Auditors Oversight Act 2020 revision, interpretation. Clause 3, repeal and substitution of Section 6, board. Clause 4, amendment of Section 7, directors. Clause 5, amendment of Section 8, managing director. Clause 6, amendment of Section 9, disqualification and termination of appointment. Clause 7, validation of acts of the board and the managing director. Clause 8, orders or determinations by court not affected. Clause 9, repeal of Auditors Oversight Act 2020 revision.
Are there any questions on clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? If there are no questions, the question is that clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stands part of the bill.
A bill for an act to amend the Auditors Oversight Act 2020 revision in order to correct the statutory basis for the establishment of the Board of Directors of the Auditors Oversight Authority, to correct the statutory basis for the appointment of the Managing Director of the authority, to validate any actions of the Board of Directors while improperly constituted, to validate any actions of the Managing Director while improperly appointed, to repeal the Auditors Oversight Act 2020 revision, and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill.
Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026. Clause 1, short title.
I've been given notice of an amendment to Clause 1. Would the member move the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chair. In accordance with Standing Order 71 and 2 of the Parliament Standing Orders 2025, I, the Honourable Johanny S. Ebanks, JP, Minister responsible for planning, lands, agriculture, housing, and infrastructure, give the notice to move the following amendment to the Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2026. That the bill be amended in Clause 1 as follows. A, in the clause heading by inserting after the word short title the words and commencement, and B, by renumbering Clause 1 as Clause 1, 1, and C, by inserting after Clause 1, 1, as renumbered the following subclause. 2, the Act shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by order made by the Cabinet, and different dates may be appointed for different provision of this Act and in relations to different matters.
The amendment has been duly moved. Does any member wish to speak thereto? Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, the minister moved this amendment after consultation with each other. We discussed and said, as there are a number of moving parts and a degree of public education that should come with this bill, this seems ripe for the usual or standard commencement provision to allow time for the framework to be developed, regulations to be developed, public education to be developed, so that the Cabinet at an appointed time can then decide when this commences.
Does any other member wish to speak? If not, the question is that the amendment stand part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the clause. Does anyone wish to speak to the clause as amended? If not, I will put the question. The question is that clause 1, as amended, stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clause 1, as amended, stands part of the bill.
Clause 2, general amendments to the Airport Authority Act 2005 revision, reference to parts, references to schedule, references to law. Clause 3, amendment section 2, definitions. Clause 4, insertion of section 32E to 32G, visual inspections of vehicles and associated powers, reasonable grounds for suspicion, general powers of approved officers to carry out safety and security requirements of the governor, powers exercisable upon increased threat level, offense, reasonable and proportionate exercise of powers, designated airport security zone. Clause 5, amendment of section 41, regulations. Clause 6, insertion of Schedule 4, approved officers of the Cayman Islands Airport Authority.
The question is that clauses 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Are there any questions on these clauses? If not, I will put the question that clause 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clauses 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 stand part of the bill.
A bill for an act to amend the Airport Authority Act 2005 revision to empower approved officers to conduct visual inspections of vehicles, to empower approved officers to control vehicular access to designated airport operational zones, and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill.
Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026, Clause 1, short title.
The question is that clause 1 stand part of the bill. Are there any questions? If not, I shall put the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clause 1 stands part of the bill.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 35 of the Health Practice Act 2026 revision, Codes of Standards of Professional Practice.
We have had notice of an amendment by the member for Red Bay, and I think you had indicated earlier that you were going to withdraw that amendment.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Based on the assurances given by the minister, I do wish to withdraw the amendment.
Maybe if they will vote on that or no. Yeah, I'd hug deal with the House. Right. The question is that the amendment as circulated to clause 2 be withdrawn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been withdrawn. The question is that clause 2 stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. Clause 2 stands part of the bill.
A bill for an act to amend the Health Practice Act 2026 revision to empower the Cabinet to prescribe standards for professional practice that apply to every registered practitioner for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill.
Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026. Clause title. Clause 1, short title and commencement. Clause 2, general amendments to the Parliament Management Act 2023 revision, references to members of the Parliament, members of the that's weird. References to members of the Parliament, member of the Parliament, members of the Parliament, member of the Parliament, and members of the Parliament. Clause 3, amendment of Section 2, interpretation. Clause 4, amendment of Section 4, general functions of the Commission. Clause 5, repeal and substitution of Section 12A, constituency assistance. Clause 6, amendment of Section 13, structure of the Commission. Clause 7, amendment of Schedule 1, salaries, allowances, and other benefits of members of the Cabinet and elected members of the Parliament. Clause 8, repeal and substitution of Schedule 2, constituency assistance, constituency allowance for members of the Parliament, allowances for the offices of the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition, and for members of the Parliament for Kimmebrack and Little Cayman.
Are there any question on clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Just 8? No 9. Okay. I was looking at something for the maybe put on something for the speaker. Anyway, the question is that clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The ayes have it. Clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stand part of the bill.
A bill for an act to amend the Parliament Management Act 2023 revision to provide for the establishment of an office for the Leader of the Opposition, to provide adequate staff to support the work of the office of the Leader of the Opposition, to provide constituency office managers to support the constituency offices of elected members of Parliament, to increase constituency allowances, and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the bill, the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill.
Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026. Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2025 revision, interpretation. Clause 3, amendment of Section 5, anti-money laundering steering group.
Are there any questions on clauses 1, 2, and 3? If there are no questions, I'll put the question. Question is that clauses 1, 2, and 3 stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clauses 1, 2, and 3 stand part of the bill.
Clause 4, insertion of Section 5A, annual performance reports of competent authorities.
We have received notice of an amendment. Would the Honorable Attorney General like to move the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in accordance with the provision of Standing Order 70, Sub 1 and 2, I, Honorable Samuel Bulgin, KCJP Attorney General, and ex officio member, give notice to move the following amendment to the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026. That the bill be amended in Clause 4 by deleting the proposed Section 5A, Sub 6, and substituting the following. 6, in bracket, an annual performance report. A, shall not contain information which, in the opinion of the steering group, small one, is sensitive, or 2, is operational data, or both, and the disclosure of which may prejudice law enforcement or national security. And B, if information is required under subsection 3F, shall contain such information which is only reported in an aggregate and anonymized form, which means that the information does not identify a person, an investigation, or a case. Thank you.
The amendment has been duly moved. Does any member wish to speak thereto? If no member wishes to speak, I shall put the question. The question is that the amendment stand part of the clause. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The amendment stands part of the clause. Does anyone wish to speak on the clause as amended? If not, I will put the question. The question is that Clause 4, as amended, stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clause 4, as amended, stands part of the bill.
Clause 5, insertion of sections 7A and 7B, information sharing among members of the Interagency Coordination Committee and between the Interagency Coordination Committee and the steering group. Immunity of the steering group and its members and of the Interagency Coordination Committee and its members. Clause 6, validation.
Are there any questions on clauses 5 and 6? If there are no questions, I'll put the question. The question is that clauses 5 and 6 stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Clause 5 and 6 stands part of the bill.
A bill for an act to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act 2025 revision in order to expand the membership of the Anti-Money Laundering Steering Group, to include the Minister with responsibility for financial services or a designate of the Minister to be chairperson of the steering group, and to include the Chief Officer of the Ministry responsible for Customs and Border Control or the designate of the Chief Officer, to provide for the sharing of information between members of a committee appointed by the steering group and between members of the steering group and members of that committee, to provide for an annual performance report of the activities of the steering group and for incidental and connected purposes.
The question is that the title do stand part of the bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The title stands part of the bill. The question is that the bills be reported to the House. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The bills will accordingly be reported to the House. The House will resume. Please be seated.
Report on bills. Airport Authority Amendment and Validation Bill 2026.
Honorable Minister of... It's on. Honorable Minister of Planning, Infrastructure, Housing, Development. No, the first one is the Airports Authority Amendment and Validation Bill.
Mr. Speaker, I am to report that a committee of the whole House has considered a bill shortly entitled the Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2026 and Validation Bill has passed without amendments, or without amendments, yeah.
The bill has been duly reported and is set down for a third reading.
Auditors Oversight Amendment, Validation and Repeal Bill 2026.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am to report that a bill shortly entitled the Auditors Oversight Amendment, Validation and Repeal Bill 2026 was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendments.
The bill has been duly reported and is set down for third reading.
Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026.
Minister of Planning.
Mr. Speaker, I am to report that a committee of the whole House has considered the bill shortly entitled the Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2026, and it was passed with amendments.
1 minute. The bill has been duly reported and is set down for a third reading.
Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026.
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I am to report that a committee of the whole House has considered the bill shortly entitled the Health Practice Amendment Bill, and it was passed without amendment.
The bill has been duly reported and is set down for third reading.
Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am to report that a bill shortly entitled Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026 was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendments.
The bill has been duly reported and is set down for third reading.
Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026.
Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to report that the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed with one amendment.
The bill has been duly reported and is set down for third reading. Set down for third reading. Must be getting late. I now invite the Honorable Premier to move the suspension of Standing Order 65 to allow all the bills to be read a third time. Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the suspension of Standing Order 65 to allow the bills to be read a third time.
The question is that Standing Order 65 be amended to allow the bills to be read a third time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Standing Order 65 has been suspended. Third readings.
Third readings. Airports Authority Amendment and Validation Bill 2026.
Honorable Minister of Finance. Of Planning. No.
No, outside. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2026 be read.
Validation amendment.
Sorry, Validation Bill 2026 be read a third time and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Airports Authority Amendment and Validation Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Airports Authority Amendment and Validation Bill 2026 has been read a third time and is passed.
Auditors Oversight Amendment, Validation, and Repeal Bill 2026.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled the Auditor's Oversight Amendment, Validation, and Repeal Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Auditor's Oversight Amendment, Validation, and Repeal Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Auditor's Oversight Amendment, Validation, and Repeal Bill 2026 has been read a third time and is passed.
Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026.
Honorable Minister of Planning.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled the Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026 be read a third time and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Airports Authority Amendment Bill 2026 has been read a third time and is passed.
Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026.
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that a bill shortly entitled the Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026 has been read a third time and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Health Insurance Amendment Bill 2026, Health Practice Amendment Bill 2026 has been read a third time and is passed.
Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026.
Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Parliament Management Amendment Bill 2026 has been read a third time and is passed.
Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026.
Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed.
The question is that a bill shortly entitled the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 be given a third reading and passed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. The Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill 2026 has been read a third time and is passed. That concludes the business on today's order paper, and I will invite the Honorable Mayor to move the adjournment of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank all members and the parliamentary staff and yourself for a productive sitting. I'll move a motion now to commence the House a bit earlier than the standing order. So I move the suspension of Standing Order 14-1 so that the House may resume tomorrow at 11 a.m., Thursday, the 30th of April.
Okay. The question is that Standing Orders 14-1 be suspended to allow the House to commence its business at 11 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, the 30th of May. Thursday, the 30th of May. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Yeah. You said 30th of May.
I'm sorry. Okay. The question is that Clause 14.1 be suspended to allow the House to commence its business tomorrow at 11 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Standing Order 14.1 has been suspended. Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate members agreeing to that motion. The member for Bodden Town West commented they were brave to come down without a quorum of 10. I figured that we had enough goodwill in the Parliament to try it for one sitting, but I didn't want to press my luck. So we moved to 11, so tomorrow we should have a quorum of 10 on the government side. So thank you, members. I now move that this House do stand adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, the 30th of April at 11 a.m.
The question is that the House stands adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, the 30th of April at 11 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The ayes have it. The House stands adjourned